Hello, Abram.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. You're very quiet tonight.
I'm very quiet. That's
Yes.
not normal. Hold on a sec. Let me see if. Huh. Okay. How about now?
Hey, that sounds like Abram.
Yeah, it was defaulting to this
I
um,
figured.
instead of my podcast mic. Ugh. Yeah.
Uh,
So
so there will be no reference to last week.
okay,
Just that it's good to be
okay,
back.
okay. That's fair. That's fine. Consider it not said. Um,
oh, oh, the panic move of having to remove all past references to it was fun. Anyway, all right.
Um,
So what have you
so
got?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So uh, last time did we did, did we talk about the ways that you can track stock and stuff? Was that something we did last time or the time before?
Yes, that was last time, I think.
Okay. Okay. Very good. All right. Because I got some new information, but I
Like the
don't think it's
the fun. Uh, you're more likely to be killed by a vending machine or something than.
yes. Yeah. Yeah, that the odds.
uh,
But
that amused me.
yes, well, you know what we were. I should just mention this in the show. We were trying to come up with songs that would, if Newegg Shuffle had a theme song, what would
Uh
it
huh.
be?
I saw that post.
Um, yeah. So I'm trying to think of what. Um, if we had had a show last week, did I ever talk about the new key switches on the chair on the Alienware?
Okay. I have to say this out loud just so I remember. I have to change the logos for the sponsors on the website. I don't think so.
Uh, okay. Um, I sent it back though, but
If I say it out loud,
that's
I'm more likely to remember it after the show.
yeah. I hear you. Man, what a what a what a week. Yeah, we can.
Yes. Yes.
We could. I mean, my week has been mostly a lot of reading other people's cool stuff to try and get it get their projects up on our site.
Uh huh.
So I don't have the awesome stuff uh, that I. Oh, hey, this was kind of. I'm glad to see it's actually getting some traffic. So so
Don't know
I'm
what it
looking
is,
right
but I am
now,
too.
and the story. Yes, always the story. We have a story about how to turn a rotary phone into a Google Assistant. Um,
Huh.
a what you need for what you need for to do that, but I don't think, especially since I don't even have the stuff. I mean, Isaac and I pretty much finished our robot today, but I don't know if that's show worthy. But we finished our little robot um, that we built from scratch. Um, so I guess the thing to talk about would be yeah. All right. Yeah, I think the thing to talk about this week would be the new yeah, okay. I think the thing to talk I'm sorry. I think the thing to talk
Uh,
about this week would be the new mechanical keyboard on the Alienware, but it's not my best because I had to send it back already.
Okay.
But did I ever talk about USB 4 on the show?
So we talked about. Let's see. What exactly are USB 4 and Thunderbolt 4? Episode 244, November 8th, 2020.
Okay, yeah. All right, nothing really new there then.
Okay.
All right, let's talk about the new mechanical keyboard
Okay.
on the Alienware, since I know people cared a lot about that Alienware.
Yeah, good point.
So if I hadn't had to send it back, I would have still had it here to show, although there's really nothing to show because it looks exactly the same.
Yeah. It's all about inside.
Yeah, it's all about the inside. But I can show the picture of how it works. So why don't we talk about that?
Sounds good. All right. And to our live viewers, thank you. I know people have been actually enjoying our kind of like behind the scenes getting ready for the show stuff lately. So I appreciate you guys sticking through it. All right.
Yeah, this is the story.
I'm going to make sure I've got something happening there. Oh. Uh-oh. Something's making noise. Huh. I forgot that I was in the middle of doing Twitter things earlier. Okay. This is one of those weeks. So everybody, I guess, prepare for a little bit of chaos. So it'll be fun, though, as it always is when we have these weird weeks. I'm ready to go. Are you ready to go?
Yep.
Okay. This week, Apple's giving up billions, Microsoft is giving up commissions, and Roku is giving up on you. Yeah, what? Nope. Try two. Oh, if I can't get through the opening, this is going to be fun. All right. Take two, friends. This week, Apple's giving up billions, Microsoft is giving up commissions, and Roku is giving up YouTube TV. It's Sunday, May 2nd, 2021, and this is episode 593 of F5 Live, Refreshing Technology, a proud part of the Tech Podcast Network. If it's tech, it's here. Wherever you are and however you're accessing our show, whether it be on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or Snapchat, through a podcatcher like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, TuneIn, or a myriad of other options, through our live streaming platforms, livestream.com, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, or on our website, plughitslive.com. Thank you for making us a part of your day. There are two ways that you can do that. The first is Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. You can go to f5live.tv/join us, and there you can chat with us in the studio and give us your feedback on the topics as we talk about them. If you can't join us live, that's okay. You can always go to plughitslive.com/subscribe, and there you'll see all of our shows, including F5 Live, The Pilch Point, Plug Hits Live Presents First Looks, and a whole lot more. And of course, find all the ways to watch, listen, or follow along. All right, Avram, it is good to be back. I always hate weeks off, although I guess we do have one more coming up since we have Mother's Day next week. But it's good to be back.
Yep. I am going to have hopefully have a really good segment for next time.
Okay.
Because it is this past month marks the 25th anniversary of Tom's Hardware, where I work my day job. And rather than just do something about Tom's Hardware and how we've been around for 25 years, people don't care about that kind of self-referential stuff.
Right.
So it's a good opportunity. I'm working on a story about the best tech 25 years ago versus today.
Okay.
And I mention that because if anyone in our audience has any ideas of different, so I want to be comparing, best CPU 19 spring 1996 to best CPU now,
Sure.
best monitor then now, best phone then, Motorola StarTAC.
Absolutely.
Now, well, you take your pick, maybe Galaxy S21 Ultra, but um, as far as newest anyway.
Sure.
So I'm looking for those different sort of categories of what was state of the art in like April, May 96 versus state of the art today.
Okay. I was
Yeah.
trying to come up with. I knew 96 was about the transition point on the micro attack to the star attack, so I wanted to
Yeah.
look up, and 96 was the transition point.
Yes.
Because I've
So
got a micro attack in here somewhere.
wow. So basically, we just have to. Scott can actually bring on everything that we're comparing to because he's kept it in his garage.
A surprising number of them, probably.
I signed up a new writer this week. We'll hoping to have some great stuff coming in from her. And her thing is that she collects retro consoles like you do.
Yeah.
So, so we're
Really.
gonna have some more retro, lots of retro
Excellent.
console content
I
on the
have
site.
I have an idea for a Twitch live stream show. Maybe it's time to talk between the two of us to do this. My idea is to go on Wish and buy those nonsense multi game streaming fake console things and see how many of them are actually playable and how many of them make us want to destroy the console.
That's an interesting concept. I'm not really up on that market. We are actually having this person do a story where they compare emulators to the original
Hmm.
consoles to I don't know what you call it, the retro consoles that say
Yeah, yeah,
Nintendo's come out with where it has the games built in or whatever.
yeah.
Um, Something else that I learned this
That's
week that
that's a cool
apparently
piece.
folks
I look forward to seeing that stuff. That sounds like a lot of fun to do.
Something else I learned about retro gaming this week that you probably already knew, but I didn't, and maybe not everyone in our audience knows.
Sure.
Apparently, retro games often play a lot better on an old TV than they do on a new TV.
Mm-hmm.
The so the refresh rate is better, and the graphics look better because that's, I guess, what it was meant to be played on. And there's less input lag.
Mm-hmm. There's there's actually a device. We've got this Florida gamers group, and there's a device that I was recently introduced to that is very hard to get your hands on and fairly expensive. That actually tricks the TV into performing as if it's older, and makes retro consoles run on modern TVs more appropriately, which I thought was fascinating.
Hmm. What kind of trick is that? Like, what is
I
it?
have
What is it? What is? No, I mean
I
lower
haven't done a
resolution.
ton of research into it. I just saw a post from the founder of the group, and I was like, "Well, that's interesting," and I put a link aside to go research later. it
Okay,
came
yeah.
it came
Please,
across Facebook just a day or two ago, I think. So
please drop that to me because we might want to test that too. I mean
sure.
that would be cool. But yeah,
I
it's
know
a it's a
Frank
it's a
Frank had been waiting for almost 6 months to get his hands on one. They're
yeah.
apparently super limited supply. I have no idea. I'll find the link and send it to you later though.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's obviously, I guess the lesson takeaway for me and for our audience is, retro is still really big and is really
Yeah.
big, and it's big even among people who by all rights like were really young when these games came out, or maybe not even alive yet.
Hmm.
Um so it's not just old fogies like me that want to play the retro games because we were playing them when we were young. It's
Right.
like people are now, of course, retro for someone who's like 25 or 30, and retro for me are different things. So
Yeah.
retro for me is like Pong.
Hmm.
Um, retro for them is like NES, SNES. You
I keep hearing people talk about GoldenEye being retro, and I'm like, that is the
right,
N64.
exactly,
That is generation
exactly.
4 of Nintendo. No.
Exactly. So that's retro to them, and that came out in I think 95 or something, 96. Um, so it's I mean that is pretty ancient. I mean 96, that's 25 years ago.
Right.
So for what it's worth,
Apparently, it was
I
supposed to come
guess
out on the 360, but that's a whole different topic. And I'm
yeah.
annoyed that it did
Um,
not.
eh, but uh, that's been cool. My son and I have been working on robots as per usual. We pretty much finished, or got, I wouldn't say pretty much finished. We got to the point where this is now drivable and has a working camera. This robot that we built from scratch with a Raspberry Pi.
Because it's
Um,
important to note that those types of projects are never finished.
no, because the next thing is that we want to put other types of sensors on
Exactly.
it, and like a microphone and a speaker. Um, and of course, we have this idea, although this hasn't really been working out. Maybe afterwards, you have some ideas of why using this gas sensor to build a fart detector. Important scientific stuff like that.
Oh,
Um,
no.
I got I got this, and it basically even it hasn't really detected anything yet. So it may be that I need a different type of gas sensor, but it's
Mayhaps.
supposed to give you a different voltage reading if it encounters methane. But my daughter, produced a wonderful sample for me in her diaper, and I brought it, and like it really stank. I mean, like one of her worst ever. And um, my wife was telling my son to go throw it in the garbage, and I said, "No, wait, I need this dirty diaper, the soiled diaper for
For
science."
science.
And I brought it over, and I stuck this right next to it, but no, that it didn't detect anything. So
Oh, my God. Oh,
the journey comes
that.
on. I didn't save the diaper. I'm sure another one will come soon.
I was going to say, that's a supply chain you don't have to worry about.
Yeah, but it's not necessarily at the time that you need it.
Sure, sure. Not necessarily something you want to hold on to for that moment, though.
Yes.
that's the beginning of uh, being on television on Hoarders or something. That's
Yeah.
I
That would
think
be hard.
I think
Horrible.
that's one of the stages in ending up on that TV show. Anyway,
Yeah.
yes, this show has gotten off to a weird start, and we're okay with that because it often does when we come back from a break. I will say that during our break, we rewired a good portion of the studio, and hopefully that will help with some of the weird things we've experienced over the last couple of weeks. So fingers crossed. Um, we will see. But for now, let's get down to the news. This week's Nifty Gifties and F5 Live is proudly powered by the Microsoft Store. Whether you're looking for a new laptop, a tablet, desperately trying to find a new Xbox, purchase games, or of course a whole lot more, you can get them all at the Microsoft Store. And it's not just Microsoft stuff. You can get phones and VR headsets and much more. And of course, remember that current students, faculty, parents, and active military can save up to 10% on almost everything, and you can find out about all of that by going to f5live.tv/Microsoft. Now, a topic that we've talked about a lot over the last year or so has been Apple's ecosystem and the closed nature of it, and Apple's belief that that's an essential part of their world, and the rest of the world's belief that it is oftentimes used as anti-competitive advantage. One of those companies, I think the two most vocal companies on that side have certainly been Epic Games and Spotify. While Epic is has had its own interesting news on their lawsuit against Apple this week. The real interesting topic came in the form of the Spotify complaint that was filed in 2019 in the European Union, where they said that Apple's 30% cut for purchases uh, for direct competitors represented anti competitive behavior because chances are that the licensing for music, give or take, is about the same for Apple or Spotify. But because of the 30% cut that Spotify has to give to Apple, that to have the same profit would require them to charge $13 a month compared to Apple's 10. The European Union has been going over it over the last 2 years. Of course, it's a bigger story than that, as things tend to be when it comes to lawsuits. And in this case, the commission took a look at more than just Spotify and ruled that yes, the 30% cut, especially against direct competitors such as Spotify, did represent anti-competitive behavior. And here's the real kicker: they are allowed to charge as high as a fee, as high as 10% of global takes, which means in this case 27 billion with a B US dollars. Now, the commission rarely, if ever, finds at the maximum. But I mean, Avram, even at 10% of 10%, that's still almost $3 billion. It's a smaller amount to Apple than it would be to, a company who didn't have the highest profits of any quarter in their corporate history this last quarter. But still, 3 billion's a hit.
Yeah, I mean, obviously 3 billion for most companies would be devastating.
Right.
For Apple, I don't know. What is Apple's market cap right now? 50, 100 billion? I don't know.
Yeah, but they can't exactly trade that out. They do have stockpiles of cash, though, which is important to also remember. They are sitting on a dragon's worth of cash, like hoarding gold in a cave. It's it's ridiculous.
Okay, so I don't know if this is yet. Apparently last summer anyway, Apple reached a $2 trillion market cap. It is over $2 trillion. So $3 billion, they can afford it. But does it make that aspect of their business, fail? Yeah. I mean, here's the question: if they're levied this fine, that doesn't mean they're allowed to keep doing it in perpetuity, is because they already paid the fine, right?
Nope.
They have to stop, right?
Yeah, they have to address the problem on top of the fine, because the fine would then continue every time they continued. So,
right.
From then on, it would continue to be 10% of their global revenue, which wouldn't be great. And by the way, the amount of cash that they are currently sitting on, that they have in on their balance sheet as direct cash or liquid assets, is almost 17 billion. So that's without them.
So if they were
to
fined
sell,
27 billion,
then they're in trouble. Then they're going to have to. Then they're going to have to
trouble.
look at selling stock and things like that to take advantage of their market cap. But as of right now, market cap doesn't mean nothing to them until they start selling their own shares, in which case their market cap starts to go down, because once you start selling more than is wanted, the price starts to drop. So they'd have to do it quick. But yeah, 16.7 billion in cash on their balance sheets, which is still a lot of money. And if 2.7 is what they're fined, 1%, they could absorb it. But even 5% would be hard to absorb at that point instead of the 10.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, I mean, this. Uh, so now, just for the benefit of our audience here, Spotify is allowed to, doesn't have to pay Apple to be in the store. They only have to pay Apple if people pay their Spotify feed via the store, right?
Correct.
So if they
Correct.
want
Well,
to sign up for Spotify
I mean,
some other
yes,
way,
they do technically have to pay to be in the store. It's $100 a year. It's statistically insignificant. Just in the interest of full disclosure, yes, there is $100 a year charge. No, it doesn't matter. The time where it does matter is if somebody signs up through the store, and just like Netflix has argued on this same topic, their choices are: don't let users uh, sign up as new users on an Apple device, or do it and lose money, or make the user experience really weird and unpleasant because it forces you over to the web browser, and even then it can't be direct. It's got to be a little cumbersome at Apple's request. And so their complaint is that their choices are either ruin the user experience and make it very different than Apple's, or take a huge profit loss or put their prices through the roof. Netflix just doesn't let you sign up on an Apple device anymore at all. It tells you to go to a computer.
right? I mean, as a so I mean there is an alternative. Now, granted, people will often take the path of least resistance,
Mhm.
but I think if you're a big enough service, then uh, people will do will do the tiny bit of work to go to a computer to sign up, right? I
Yeah,
mean, spot
especially if you're somebody like Netflix, right? Netflix
yeah.
has easy things because they've got a ton of exclusives and things like that. If you want to watch Stranger Things, your only choice is going to be to go to a computer and sign up. But if you're listening to music, right, your choices are go through hassle on Spotify or literally click a button in Apple Music and you're off and running. Apple's already got an advantage there, and that was their complaint that actually landed with the European Commission.
Yeah, I mean it's fair, right? People, say what you want, but people will abandon. I mean, there are all kinds of people whose job it is to figure out why some folks will not finish an online purchase
Hmm.
because they had to click an extra time uh, to buy something, right? So so I get it. Plus, we're talking about Spotify and Netflix, which are companies that are in leadership positions,
Hmm.
but not everybody who's affected by these policies is is a leader in their space that can count on inconveniencing
Right.
customers. Uh, that can swallow that kind of disadvantage.
Hmm.
So
A
yeah,
startup coming out of nowhere trying to compete on a thing, and then Apple comes out with that thing too, which happens way too frequently, right? Uh, Now all of a sudden they're directly in competition, and now they're hitting this, but they don't have the weight of Netflix or Spotify, where people are like, well, I'm signing up for Spotify, I know I'm gonna do it. um, some small startup doesn't necessarily have that luxury.
So, does it have to be the case that Apple handles the payment? Like, if you, or could they just uh, allow the third party to handle the transaction themselves through their app?
No. uh, if a purchase is made in app on an Apple device, it is made through the App Store, period. No alternative. That was where Epic Games got started. They simply added a second payment option to Fortnite, and that's when they pulled it from the App Store.
Right. So that's that's where I could see a ruling going
Hmm.
that, hey, you have to allow these companies to do their own transactions. Like, Apple is, for better or worse, if you are handling the money then you are entitled to some kind of a cut, right?
Absolutely.
If that's why credit card processors make money off of credit card processing.
100%.
But there's no really good reason why Apple has to exclusively handle the money.
Right. And so I think that is kind of where we're headed. Maybe it'll be, maybe Apple's policy would be more like the ability, the forced ability to use an Apple account to sign up for a thing. If you have the option to sign in with Facebook and or Twitter and or Google, you have to also give the option for signing in with an Apple account. It doesn't require that that be the only path, but it does require that it be an option. Maybe some sort of a middle ground like that, because it's what Epic did, right? When Epic did it, they left the App Store option, and then they added the Epic Store option, and Apple freaked. That might be the safe middle ground where they say you have to give your users the option to pay through the store, which would mean not having to have another credit card on file, and using Apple Pay and all the things that make that process easy, which was part of Apple's goal originally. The 30% was a goal too, but obviously the easy user flow was their whole goal. But all of that has gone out the window with this stuff, where Netflix and Spotify just say you can't sign up through the app, which doesn't make it better for anybody. So I think they could win some friends if they went that direction and said have it as it's a forced option, but it doesn't have to be the only option. I think they'd win some friends that way. Maybe not win over everybody, because Epic still wants the Epic Game Store to be available on the iPhone. But I think they'd win over a lot of people that way, and it would be good for them. I don't know. It seems like a pretty easy and direct way to get out of trouble with the EU, but we don't know what that's going to look like. A future agreement hasn't been reached, but of course, one will be coming, because there's no way, like you said, Avram, there's no way the EU lets this continue to happen. They will force some sort of a solution. This week's Pilch Point with Avram Pilch is proudly powered by PureVPN. The best way to protect your privacy online is with PureVPN. You can hide your online activities, say goodbye to regional restrictions, and improve your streaming quality. Plus, it's available for almost all of your devices, and you can get a special price right now by going to pilchpoint.live/PureVPN. All right, so 2 weeks ago when we were last on, Avram, you teased, and now that I think about it, you teased very, very briefly a keyboard change. I think you've got more on that now.
Yes. So a couple months ago, we had a show about where I showed off the Alienware M17R4, which remains probably the best gaming laptop you can buy, because not only can you get it with an RTX 3080 card, which is top of the line for a laptop anyway, but they actually run it at a higher TDP, thermal design profile, meaning it uses more wattage because they have more cooling to offset that heat. And so you get really good performance. And by default, this laptop has a really good snappy keyboard. But the Alienware company, Dell, which owns Alienware, recently added a brand new option, the first of its kind on any laptop, a mechanical keyboard with a brand new type of switch, the Cherry MX ultra low profile switch. So there have been some laptops, there's been a few that have had mechanical keyboards, but they've been very few, and there's usually a trade-off of it being very thick or not very good. Let me see if I can show you here mechanical keyboard. So just for those who aren't familiar with mechanical keyboards and the difference here, you really want a mechanical keyboard, and uh, a lot of people get them for their um, a lot of people get them for their external keyboard for their desktop or attached to a laptop at home. Here I have a keypad. It's kind of a custom made one just for fun, called the Keybow. Um, and you can see that mechanical switches, if I pull off the keycap here, mechanical switches, unlike a lot of laptop switches and regular what we call rubber dome switches, they actually have a mechanism here with a spring. And this one is a clicky mechanism. These are actually called yellow switches. Each switch, so people who care about mechanical keyboards, they care about who makes the switch, because the feel of the switch is everything, right? And Cherry is the original, one of the most popular, the most popular switch maker for mechanical switches. And up until now, the company really wasn't catering to the laptop market because that wasn't something that it was doing. But they have just come out with this new switch type. So let me show you a diagram actually of what it looks like. Um, if we look here, you'll see. I'm going to zoom in. You'll see this diagram. So this is what a regular Cherry MX switch looks like. It's about the travel being the amount that you press, that the switch moves when you press it, is on a regular switch is about 4 millimeters, but the actual whole switch is 18.5 millimeters tall. And for certain keyboards, not for laptops, they've already come out with a low profile switch, which is about 11.9 millimeters tall. But the new one for laptops, the ultra low MX ultra low profile, has 1.8 millimeters of travel, but it's only 3.5 millimeters tall, which means it's not making your laptop significantly thicker. And if you take a look here, this is actually a blow up of what the new switch looks like. And the switch is actually supposed to be inspired by the gull wing doors on a DeLorean. So if you've watched Back to the Future, you've seen this switch. So how does it actually feel? So Dell sent me a new Alienware M17. This is what it looked like. I had to send it back, so I'm showing you a picture rather than flashing the real one. But it looks identical to the one that I had shown on this show a few weeks ago that didn't have the mechanical switches. So you wouldn't be able to tell just from looking at it. However, the feel of it is really quite extraordinary. It has that really great clicky feel. Now, obviously, some folks don't like a clicky feel, but it has that audible feedback. So it feels more like a Cherry MX Blue. Cherry MX Blue switches are their clicky switches, versus say their brown switches, which have a tactile feel but are silent, or their red switches, which are linear, which means they just go straight down with no tactile bump while you press them. But these switches, the Cherry MX Ultra Low Profile, even though they're much, they take up a lot less space than a traditional mechanical switch, they still have that mechanical switch feel and sound. And so I found typing on this absolutely fantastic. I found gaming on it absolutely fantastic. It really couldn't, if you bought the Alienware M17 R4 with this optional keyboard, which is an extra $176. So no joke how much you're paying extra to get this over the default keyboard. Granted, if you're buying an Alienware M17, you're probably spending over $2,000 anyway. So maybe you're in a mood to splurge. The Switch is really, really fantastic, and it would save you from having to go out and buy an external keyboard if you want the best possible keyboard experience. Now, at the moment, Alienware is the only company that has these switches, that is allowed to use these switches. They have a some window of exclusivity, we think, with Cherry, uh, but whatever it is, whenever it's definitely not. I don't think it's forever. So we will probably be seeing these on other keyboards and other laptops. And frankly, I would love to see them on an ultra portable laptop, not one that was made for gaming, but one that was made for productivity. Because honestly, as much as I love ThinkPad keyboards, this would actually outdo a ThinkPad keyboard. It's just got such a wonderful feel and click to it. I was able to, to match one of my highest typing speeds ever, and it was just really a pleasure to use. And so, even if you're not in the market for an Alienware M17 or an Alienware M15, which also has this as an option, it's still worth noting because in the near future, other laptops will probably be available with this key switch. Perhaps maybe even they'll bring it to external keyboards, although if you have an external keyboard, you have the room to get a full-fledged switch. I mean, unless somehow your hands are in, I don't know, some kind of a vice or something, I'm sure you have the extra 20 millimeters or whatever for a full-size switch on your desk, the extra 20 millimeters of height. But nevertheless, it's an impressive achievement, and so I wanted to share that here.
I do want to say I like the idea of trying to type with your hands in a vice. That was very visual.
I mean, because there are some folks, I mentioned this because one of the comments I got on my article about, so I have an article up about the experience of typing on the Cherry MX Ultra low profile switches. And one of the comments I got was, when is this coming to an external keyboard? And it points out to me something that I've not quite understood in the marketplace, which is that there is a market for low profile keyboards. And therefore, there are people who want their desktop keyboard to be, this is too tall for them, right? This size switch is too tall for them. These are normal switches. They can't bear, this amount of height being taken up on their desk. But the question is, why? I mean, now I have seen some of those low profile keyboards and they look cool, but at the same time, like, when it comes to your keyboard, there's looks and then there's comfort. And I mean, there's no really practical reason why you wouldn't have the space for a taller keyboard. It's not like the air rights on your desk are restricted or something. I understand why some people want a smaller keyboard with fewer keys, because then they can have more space on their desk, but vertical space above your keyboard is never, it's not normally a concern. So
Yeah, I mean, even in the setup here, where I have it in a cubby that literally was designed for a Radio Shack cash register, uh, I've got plenty of space above the keyboard to have a mechanical keyboard in here. And this
right,
was not designed for what I'm using it for.
yeah, I mean, I I've really spent a lot of time looking into, because I love having the best possible keyboard experience, and I know there's more that I can do with my personal keyboard, like this one that I've shown previously. This Hex Gears Impulse is great, but I would still, love to build a custom keyboard. But nevertheless, I don't quite understand the move toward having less on your keyboard. There are a lot of folks who now they want what's called a 60% keyboard, which is no arrow keys. Like, forget, not just no number pad, no arrow keys, no function keys. All that stuff would have to be done with keyboard combinations. Uh, and I don't quite get it. I mean, I get that they want to save a little space on their desk, but uh, if your space isn't for buttons, what could it be? what could it be before? Could never have enough buttons in our life, never. But nevertheless, there definitely are trends toward having narrower and shorter keyboards. These switches work really well because in the laptop world, you really need that space. Otherwise, your laptop's Z height will look like this. And I have seen a couple of instances before where on really high end laptops they did use a mechanical keyboard, and wow, those things were thick. Like it was an MSI, I think it was the GT75 Titan or whatever. That was like, wow, that thing was super thick. It had wonderful key feel. That thing was really thick. So these keys make it thin enough that you might very well be able to put this on an ultra portable laptop.
Yeah, I was introduced, obviously you live in this, but I was introduced literally to the idea of these small, short, but still mechanical keyboards on what's today, Sunday? Yesterday. Because my brother has one without the keycaps on it that was sitting off to the side on his desk. And I'm like, what are we looking at here? He's like, it is just the core. And I'm thinking, wow, because I've got a keyboard that is so big, it's got almost a whole extra keyboard to the left. To your point of you can't have too many buttons.
Yeah.
I've got, I mean, oh, no, keyboard, the cord's too short. I've got 18 additional keys off to the left. I got myself almost a whole extra keyboard.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm trying to, my real beef is that it doesn't work at the same height, but I have this keyboard here, which is like an extra 12 keys that you can program for stuff. This is, by the way, something you can get at Pimoroni for, I think, about $50. And my son and I had worked on, I got to dig it out. My daughter, because my daughter's been running around with it, another keypad, right, that you could do for extra keys, because I'm always a big fan of like, give me another button to press. But there definitely are folks who are really into a minimalist approach. Perhaps one of these days, I did for a while when I was reviewing one, test out a really limited keyboard, and it wasn't I wasn't too thrilled, especially to be missing the arrow keys. But so is that going to be your brother's new keyboard?
No, I think he's getting ready to sell it. I think he was annoyed by it.
I mean, you still need the caps, though. You still need the keycaps.
I'm not going to lie. Thinking about it now, I think he may have purchased it because it was on sale and he wanted the keycaps, and it was less than buying the caps.
Oh, he wanted the keycaps.
So thinking back on it, that might have been the case.
But then the rest of his keyboard's not going to have matching keycaps, right? If he puts it on a regular keyboard.
Or maybe he was swapping out switches. I don't remember what the reason was, but now that I think about it, I think he bought it on sale to replace a component somewhere, and it was less than buying the components. I'd forgotten about that until just now.
I will say this. I really want to try some different keycaps. This is somewhat off topic, because if you have a laptop, you're not going to be changing the keycaps. You can.
True.
But that is one thing that mechanical keyboards on a laptop definitely cannot do, is allow you to change the keycap. And I guess they don't really want you to, because if you got a keycap that was too tall, it would bump into the lid and you'd have problems. But I really want to try on my home keyboard SA style keycaps. Have you ever tried those?
No.
SA keycaps, and they can be quite expensive. So the cheapest I've seen them is like $60 for a set. Normally they're like $80, $90, $100, and I'm worried to spend that on keycaps if I may not love them. But they are thicker and taller, and they are rounder, and they are supposed to look and feel like old school terminal keyboard keycaps. So if you like used a Commodore PET back in the day, or some kind of terminal back in the day, this is the style of keycap that those had, including the big font that they had.
I am definitely looking on a website at a yellow set of them. And yeah, honestly, they look so much like some of my super old keyboards. Very different than what I've got under here.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm nostalgic for that old feel. Instead of retro gaming, I want to be retro typing.
Yeah, fair enough. And you know, for a lot of people, that physical feedback and the feel of the keys are all very very important. So, and that's where this keyboard comes in. You said that you've already published an article on this.
Yes. Yes. So we have an article about it on Tom's Hardware about the new Cherry MX ultra low profile switches. We also have updated the review of the Alienware N17. So you can check that out as well.
Excellent. Well, I'm super intrigued by this. I will admit that I was doing the configurator on Alienware's website while you were talking to see the price of the laptop
Yeah, I
with
said
my
it should be 100.
configuration and that keyboard.
Yeah, probably like $3,000 or something,
Yeah, pretty close.
depending on what you want, right? The
27,
keyboard's
24.
The keyboard option last I checked, which was I think Thursday or Friday, was $176 premium.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, 176. 176.40 just to be extra weird. I was looking at the price and I'm like, how did it get to 27, 24, 39? Where is the extra 40 cents coming from? Oh, now I know.
Yeah, it's bizarre. The pricing is bizarre.
Whatevs. Doesn't matter. So I'm intrigued. I've been looking for a laptop, and this has been on my list. And with the additional keyboard option, it's gone up my list. So very interesting. As always, Avram, I appreciate the information because this is stuff that is outside of my day to day. So it's always nice to have you bring it to our attention, and I look forward to what we talk about next time. This week's Extra Life on F5 Live is proudly powered by Loot Crate. Whether you're a gamer, anime fan, or pop culture aficionado, Loot Crate has got a crate for you. They curate a bundle of collectibles, apparel, figures, and more that you can't find anywhere else. Crates get delivered to your door. It's like an awesome birthday present from your friend every month. And to learn more about the crates that are available, you can go to f5live.tv/lootcrate. Interesting. Our topics are all gonna kind of be related tonight. So we talked about Apple and their App Store policies. Now we're gonna talk about some game store policies. We know that the standard commission, as we spoke earlier, on sales is 30%. Apple, Google, Steam, Microsoft. It's been kind of standard operating procedure for a while. That is until Epic Games, who does like to screw around with convention, came about and changed their commission from 30 to 12 when they launched. And that we said at the time, we said that would either completely fail or change the needle for the rest of the industry. And this week, Microsoft has announced that the Windows Store will be following suit on all game sales will go from 30% to 12%, leaving Steam as your big high-profile store still sitting at 30%. Now, Microsoft is obviously trying to do a couple of things here. First, they're trying to get more attention to the Microsoft Store. It's built into the Windows 10. It's part of the distribution, unless you're talking about an EA game, it's part of the distribution for Game Pass Ultimate or Game Pass PC. And so I think they're wanting more stuff in the store, especially games, particularly so that they can attract additional developers into Game Pass. That is my prediction. But of course, they're also just trying to get more attention to the store as a whole, which has struggled to get some high profile stuff. Although today, kind of everybody's there, other than maybe Snapchat. But I think this has a lot to do with Game Pass and getting attention to that, and maybe bringing some people over from Steam. I don't know. What do you think, Abram?
Yes, I think there's downward pressure on the commission, and unlike Apple, they don't feel like they can hold the line because they have a strong competitor here, especially in Epic Games.
Mm-hmm.
So, and even in Steam. So yeah, they have to do something about it. They're doing something about it. I mean, this kind of shows when there's something that's a company does that is, I don't know, either one company does that is either positive or negative for the consumer or the partner, in this case the partner, that other companies are going to follow suit, because if they don't, they're going to get left behind. Mm-hmm. So for a while there, you couldn't get on mobile, you couldn't get unlimited data anywhere. And right. Then T-Mobile started to offer people unlimited data, and then all of a sudden you see Verizon bring back unlimited data plans, and AT&T unlimited data plans. So when you see one company responds to another, right? So here's Microsoft's response. Okay, yeah. And we may be seeing a response at some point from Apple. Maybe Apple will, but Apple doesn't really. I mean, does Apple see itself as a player in games? I mean, only mobile games.
Yeah.
And do they really care?
And the thing, right? And we've talked about this, especially when it comes to Apple and the Epic Games battle. There has been Epic's whole point is that without any competition, the monopoly runs roughshod. That's been their whole argument this whole time, and it's the reason why they want to be able to offer the Epic Games Store on iOS, right? Because and here I guarantee this is going to end up in court. Right? This is going to be part of that lawsuit. They're going to bring this in as evidence. We did this big thing, and it ended up better for all the publishers. Because there's competition on Windows. There's 3 big places that you can get games. And, if you add in, EA Origin or I think they changed Origin's name. I think they're just calling it EA Play now. But, you've got EA with their game store. You've got whatever the French Canadian.
Good Old Games.
I'm sorry?
Well, I don't know.
GOG?
It's a serious competitor. GOG, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even Humble, if you really want to get down to it, right? There's plenty of competition there, but you've got 3 major independent players in the space. It's definitely Steam, Microsoft, and Epic today, because they're all easy to put launchers on your computer. And 2 of them are now using this new model. All because one of them did, and publishers liked it. And so I think this move from Microsoft ends up being admitted as evidence in the Epic Apple thing, because it's literally the thing that Epic has been saying. Without competition, Apple runs roughshod. With competition, publishers will have choice. And here we're seeing exactly that play out. So it's definitely interesting. Hopefully it does start to bring additional publishers over to the store, which could mean the addition of new content, new rotating content into Game Pass, which I still say is probably the best deal in gaming these days, especially now that EA Play is part of it, because I have lost way too much time to The Sims. ever since they added that, I have lost lots of time to The Sims, which is fine. I don't get to game a lot, right? Because we're always writing or recording or doing something, and so having some game added into my thing that I enjoy was nice. But this could be good for that too. I think this is a good move all around. I'd like to see that 30 drop to 12. Microsoft, if you're still listening, I would like to see that 30 drop to 12 for more than just games. But we'll talk about that next. We'll have that conversation. Maybe at Build we'll hear something like that. That would be nice. So I don't know. It seems like a good move, and I look forward to seeing what comes of it, and if Steam ends up feeling the pressure and following suit. This week's news from the tubes and F5 Live is proudly powered by Malwarebytes. Whether you use a PC, a Mac, or a mobile device, Malwarebytes Premium is Malwarebytes' strongest protection ever. It fights threats that traditional antivirus software can't stop, and it actively blocks threats like worms, rogues, dialers, Trojan rootkits, spyware, exploits, bots, and other malware. And you can use your computer and mobile devices with confidence and peace of mind. And to learn more and to get a special price, you can go to f5live.tv/malwarebytes. All right. Obviously, a big topic in tech is streaming. We talk about it a lot. We've got a topic in a minute where we're going to talk about some fighting on the space, but we talk about it in media. Over the last year and a half, we've talked about it a lot in gaming. Microsoft, Google, and NVIDIA have proved that the space is ready for game streaming. It was inevitable for other parts of the tech industry to experiment in this space. And now we have an interesting entry into the remote computing, just visual streaming space, and that is a web browser called Mighty. The idea is that we all know Edge has new browser issues. Safari seems to think it works better if it's closed. Chrome is notorious for eating resources. So the idea is take that off of your system and put it onto a more powerful system. For example, one with 16 CPUs, 16 gigs of RAM, and high-end NVIDIA GPUs. And just push the end render to you. The concept's not entirely new. If you have been following F5 Live since before that was the name of the show, you might remember a story in which our group was at Universal for Halloween Horror Nights, standing in line for a haunted house, watching a Rays baseball game and Family Guy on Hulu on a phone back when Flash was the only option before smartphones were popular. So Opera Mini was the browser, and they gave you the option to render Flash remotely and just push the video to your device. And that's absolutely what we did. Did it work real well? Anybody who used OnLive can answer that question. But it did work, and we did watch a Rays game on a flip phone standing in line. So, you know, it wasn't bad. And it was so funny because we were in with the employee. We let a couple of people go ahead of us because the employee was watching the game with us. But so the idea is not new, even in the browser space. But here's the thing, Avram, that worries me about this Mighty browser. We know that things like keystrokes for a browser are important. Otherwise, things like validators don't work, right? So that means that every keystroke is being sent to this remote server, whether it be passwords or credit card numbers. They're going through and being processed on this remote computer that you don't have full control over, and that makes me super uncomfortable.
Yeah. Uh, I don't understand. I mean, I guess there's a somewhat of a benefit, but I mean, at some point you need a browser on your computer to download content. Like you can't get
Yeah,
away from
absolutely.
that. So I get it that there's a lot of things happen in the web, and so there's more processing going on. Plus the fact that there's always a lot of different sources feeding into a web page. It's possible that you would see some speed benefits from having all of that data compiled somewhere else. But there has to be some degree of latency in that it has to download the page and then send it to you.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, how is that helpful? And then the the other thing is, yeah, I find it very troubling that you're you may be giving security things like you're creating another vector of attack.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm sure that Mighty will say, oh no, we're totally secure. Everybody says that, right?
Right.
But
But you can ask Home Depot and Target how well that worked out when they were totally secure too.
I mean, I'm curious to try it, but on the other hand, I don't want to because I'm worried about some of these things. But like for example, I have right here a YubiKey, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I use this as a second factor
Mm-hmm.
for authentication for some things. So how is it going to work when this physically has to be in my computer,
Right.
but as a second factor, but they're down, but they're not really. I'm not, it's down like the web page, whatever service I'm using that I use this as a second factor for is actually going to the client wherever their server is, not me. So is it able to read things that are on my computer and treat the remote computer like it's my computer here with physical keys? I wonder about that.
It is definitely local software, right? That is requesting as if it were a browser. So maybe it would have access to that. I don't know. There are a lot of questions. The good news is I've requested access because it's still behind a test wall. So I have requested access. I will give it a shot. I will probably install it within a Windows 10 sandbox simply because I don't trust anybody really at this point. I mean, if you, Abram, sent me a link to download something, I would. But outside of that, there's very few people or things on that list.
But yeah,
So I'd probably run it in a sandbox just to be able to test certain things, and then maybe on a special device. I've got a Surface Pro sitting around that doesn't have any important information on it anymore that I might give it a shot on just to see if it can do things like access those keys. But even then, I've got a couple of YubiKeys, so maybe I'll tie one specifically to some accounts that don't matter for testing or something. But it's all very weird to me.
And because even if it works, does that mean that because it has to pass through them, that they are then getting that data?
Right. And would it be replicable or not? Because I don't know enough about YubiKey. I mean, I could probably email one of the reps over there and ask, but I don't know if it would be replicable. Is it a one-time, like, is it, a moment in time, like an authenticator app, or I don't know how any of that works.
Yeah, I think I'm going to end up doing
I'm going to do a deep dive on this and contact YubiKey, and see what they have to say about it.
It's interesting, but I mean, just aside from that, your keystrokes are going up to the internet. Mm-hmm. They're not just here on your computer. So I think that's of some concern.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know if everybody realizes this, but when you are viewing a web page, like you've downloaded that web page to your device, your computer has a copy of that web page. And I mean, there are, of course, websites that do things using Ajax, so it is sort of collecting your keystrokes in real time. But for the most part, things that you type online aren't sent through any intermediary, and they're sent at the point at which you submit whatever. Like you enter your username and password and you submit it. So I think it's troubling because let's say it was a password that you had to enter. Now it has to be broadcast from your computer to Mighty's server, presumably, and then in that space, which I'm sure is supposed to be encrypted, that's another. And then after Mighty gets it, it has to pass it along to your bank or your email client, your email service, or whatever, and that's another hop. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah. Uncomfortable to say the least. It is weird. It makes me uncomfortable. And on top of it, I'm still not sold on why.
I mean, they claim, I'm looking at their website and they claim that you'll save like a couple of seconds on a download. If you test it, you should absolutely try a couple of websites and see if there's a noticeable speed difference.
Mm-hmm. And try it on a couple of services. I've got more than one service here I can test it on too. There's going to be.
I mean,
I think there's a deep dive coming on this because this is fascinatingly weird.
To be honest, I don't even have the fastest home internet. I'm only supposed to be getting like 75 gigabit, which is not that great.
Nope.
Right?
Even 75 gigabit would be the fastest.
Oh, I'm sorry, 75 megabit.
You would have everybody on the planet beat except maybe Microsoft.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. 75 megabit. A 75 megabit connection, right? It's not that great, but it meets within targets for things like streaming services. And honestly, listen, I used to use dial-up. I know you have too. Like that, those were days when you had DSL or dial-up or things like you'd really be watching the time it took to load a web page. Honestly, I don't have a lot of problems now. I mean, the things that cause problems are not really due to the bandwidth, I feel like. Mm-hmm. I feel like that the reason a web page loads slowly is usually nothing to do with my bandwidth and everything to do with there's some kind of horribly programmed piece of code on the page, like an ad that I don't know if even having a gigabit of speed would solve that. It's something where there's processing going on behind the scene.
I'll step up to that. Having 32 gigs of RAM and a modern Threadripper and a gigabit connection does not stop Ranker from loading in 30 minutes.
Right. So the problem is somewhere else. It's not in your connection. So I'm not sure that it's really solving it. I can't really think. So, I mean, while I wish that when I went to visit content websites, they didn't have so many, didn't have so much stuff on the page. I think everyone would say that. And that some of that stuff, because it's coming from disparate servers, can really slow things down. But it's not because my internet connection is not fast enough. Mm-hmm. And I think the same can probably be said for services like it drives me a little nuts sometimes when I use Google Analytics, how long it takes to generate a report. Like you might be sitting there for like 20, 30 seconds waiting for it to generate a report. And it's like, come on, Google, don't you have a faster server than this? But I think that's because processing, the processing that's happening, not because there's so much information that it can't download it fast.
It's the compilation, not the transfer.
So therefore, I don't know how even having, if it's how this would help you.
Yeah. I am 100% convinced I'm doing a deep dive on this. I'll make it available to you too, Avram, if you want it, because this is super fascinating. Both in a why and a how will real things connect. So I will have something on that at some point in the future. Obviously, this will take some time to test out, but uh, we will be coming back to this. We may even want to do a special on it because it's going to be it's weird. I can all but guarantee. This week's DRM, not included in F5 Live, is proudly powered by Amazon Prime. You know you get free shipping, but you may not know you also get free music with Amazon Prime Music, free TV, movies, and documentaries with Amazon Prime Video, free games, and a free Switch subscription to support the content creator of your choosing with Amazon Prime Gaming, and of course a whole lot more. And we have got shortcuts to all those features, a couple of additional features, a free 30-day trial if you're not already subscribed, and the ability to send it as a gift, all by going to f5live.tv/prime. I mentioned that we would be talking about some other content stuff and streaming altogether, because again, this is a weird tie-in show. When Roku got started many years ago, one of the big selling points was the fact that it was content agnostic. With reason. There was no adult content, there was no pirated content. But so long as you stayed within those very wide margins, you could have a channel on Roku. In fact, I once, over a weekend, developed and published a channel on Roku just because I wanted to. It no longer exists, so it doesn't matter. But I did, just because sometimes that's fun. But things have changed in the last couple of years, and Roku has gotten more into a Apple mentality, maybe, or where they want contracts with a lot of the higher profile channels, and they want them to follow different rules, and sometimes those channels want Roku to follow different rules because, you know, once you start negotiations, that means you have to negotiate. And so we saw HBO Max take forever to come to Roku. In fact, it took so long that it was a news story when it finally happened. This week, the platform that they have been fighting with has been YouTube TV. Now, not YouTube, but YouTube TV, their cable replacement subscription. Roku and Google both have slightly different versions of the story, but the story goes something like this. Google has asked for certain rule violations for YouTube TV. Sometimes Roku has agreed. Sometimes they have not had the technological power to stop them and are changing that, and sometimes they don't care. For example, YouTube TV has its own search results row on the home screen. If you have YouTube TV installed and you search for a TV or movie, there is, you know, all your different platform agnostic rows, and then at the bottom there's YouTube TV. Which is weird, because even Roku's own Roku channel doesn't have that. There's also, when you do voice search within YouTube TV, it only searches within YouTube TV, and Roku 10 was supposed to change that so that when you did a voice search, it would show, if you're in an app, the app first, and then other results as well, and it doesn't quite do that. So Google has said that they haven't really asked for anything special. They haven't asked for user data. They're not violating any content rules, and they don't understand why Roku is upset. And Roku says, obviously you do, shut up. And so in a similar move to what we see on cable television all the time, right? It's like the contract with Fox is up. So your cable provider says, well, Fox is going to pull their networks off your cable, and Fox says the cable's going to remove our stations if you don't call them. Roku and Google have done the exact same thing. With Roku, users getting emails from both Roku and Google saying the other one was going to pull the app. Now, in fairness, on Friday, the app did disappear. um, if you don't have it on your Roku device, YouTube TV is no longer attainable. But if you have it, you're not losing it for now. It wasn't this the whole point in cord cutting, that we weren't going to be fighting these cable style battles, Avram, that we were supposed to be getting rid of the hassle, not just finding more ways to implement it?
No. Yeah. I mean, that was the hope. This is why I don't really believe cord cutting is everything people thought it was.
Yeah, it was for a couple of years, but
in fact, it's just really service multiplying, because I still have cable, because the lifestyle that, my family and I lead, we end up watching a fair amount of TV and putting on TV for the kids, and they watch Nickelodeon or whatever. And usually I think with cord cutters, it's like they're very deliberate about, hey, I'm going to sit down now and watch this show. And I'm like, oh, kids are playing in the living room, turn on the TV, put on Nick Jr. or whatever. So I have cable, and yet I still have to subscribe to a slew of services to get different things, because of all the different content that I would want to see. Right?
Oh, for Netflix,
there's Netflix. Right. There's Netflix for this thing, and then there's HBO Max for that thing, and Paramount Plus for that thing, and Amazon Prime for this thing, and and Disney Plus for that thing. Actually, right now, I think the only major one I don't have is Hulu. So
that's interesting. For me, reverse those last two. I don't have Disney Plus, but I do have Hulu.
Yeah.
So together, no.
Yeah.
Disney, so, you didn't hear
anyway,
that.
Yeah. I mean, so yeah, it's like you can't win, right? I think I guess the solution with cord cutting is, if there's something that you really don't want, then you don't have to pay for it, but you're still going to end up paying almost the same amount if you want different kinds of content.
Yeah.
And but what's a shame here is, for people who bought the Roku platform, they don't care. Like, they don't care who's right and wrong. They want to be able to use all of the apps, all the services. And ultimately, this kind of thing hurts Roku perhaps more than it hurts the provider, because Roku is selling people, $30, $50, $70 box. And there are alternatives to that box,
including from our friends at Google in this case.
Right. There are many alternatives to that box. So, I mean, I like Roku. I use Roku in my house. I like it much better than some of the things I've seen that are built into smart TVs and built into, using your console, like your PlayStation or whatever, as a media streamer. I like the Roku interface. I think they got to do what they got to do to stay in business, because obviously selling people cheap boxes probably doesn't keep them in business forever, because how often do you buy those? You probably buy it and hold on to it for a very long time.
Licensing the operating system to TCL and a couple of others, though, probably does help some, but not a lot.
But it's not on the lead. It's not on Samsung. It's on. I mean, I don't know what the market cap of TCL is. Although
number 2 in the United States.
Oh, okay. And honestly,
yay! A CES press conference did something for a conversation. Hooray!
And honestly, I may very well get a TCL TV soon, because we are talking about getting a new TV for the living room, and the fact that Roku is built in to the TV is actually a plus, a big plus for me, because that's going to save me an HDMI connector that I could use for another device.
Yep.
So, because I like Roku, so I get all this, but they're going to have to work it out.
Yeah.
Because it's really easy for people to get an Amazon Fire Stick or something else,
or the Chromecast, Google TV, or it's real easy to plug something else in.
Yeah.
Or God forbid, you start casting from your mobile device and bypass all of it, right? That none of that ends up being good for Roku. The thing with Roku is that it's easy. The point is that everything's there and it's easy to do. Oh, as soon as one of those things starts to fall apart, then I'm willing to take on the challenge of it not being quite as easy if it means I can do it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the good thing is that, if Roku had not come through with the HBO Max, I probably would have, because we had HBO Max and we really wanted to see Wonder Woman. If they had not come through by that time, there was a very decent chance that we would have gotten a Fire Stick for $25 and plugged that in, and that might have been, the change for us.
Yep, the beginning of a transition. I can say personally, in my day-to-day life, I've got 2 Roku devices and a WebOS device. Well, I mean, I've got a lot of WebOS devices, but one that I use on a regular basis, and I like both of them. Obviously, I've got consoles and stuff and lots of other ways to do things. But if Roku was going to be a problem and start pulling platforms on me, I would have no problem switching over to something else. I'm not married to it. I sold it at Radio Shack, so I do have a bit of a nostalgic connection back to our keyboard nostalgia. I do have a nostalgic connection to Roku, but if they're gonna if they start going over to the dark side, I don't have a problem transitioning away. And that's
right.
Important
that's the thing.
for Roku to hear. It's important for you to hear, Roku. We're ready to transition away if you transition to the dark side. Don't be Apple.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a little bit better and a little bit more convenient than the competition. Yeah. But if you pull platforms that people want, then it stops being convenient, and that's the end.
Yeah, and maybe LG sees an opportunity to start licensing WebOS to other TV manufacturers, and TCL does something different. Last thing you want is to encourage LG to start putting a competitor against you. So anyway, it's all very strange. The end result, of course, is that YouTube TV will be back, because there's no way they fight this. They don't have, like we said, they don't have the market strength to play the Apple game and say, no, Fortnite's not coming back. Sad story, bye-bye. They don't have that kind of strength because nobody's married to it. Yes, it's built into the TV here in the studio that I've reached for, that Abrams TV. Yes, it's built into that, but a $25 Fire Stick can get around it real quick. So anyway, please, Roku, listen to us, and you're not Spectrum. You can't win this one. That is our show. Thank you to our live viewers. We always appreciate when people join us live. It makes this a whole lot more fun. For those of you who didn't, that is okay if you'd like to in the future. Sunday nights. That's my other show, is Friday nights. Sunday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern, f5live.tv/join us. If you can't join us live, that's okay. There are many, many ways that you can watch, listen, and follow along, and all of that is available by going to plughitslive.com/subscribe. Whether you're on an Apple device, honestly, whether you're on an Apple device, a Google device, a Roku device, there is a way to watch or listen to us. So definitely check that out, and all the links are there. Next week, of course, is Mother's Day, so we will be off, and we will be back the week after we've got some time until Father's Day, so hopefully we will be back to normal for a little while. And with that, on behalf of the staff that's not here, I'm Scott.
I'm Avram.
And we will see you back next time. Ciao.